I want you to turn in the Bible to the New Testament book of 2 Timothy. I'd love for you to follow along. New Testament book of 2 Timothy. If you're a guest, it's an honor to have you as well. Just want to take the next few minutes to kind of just build you up a little bit today. But while you're turning, I need to tell you about a series beginning next week. And I need everybody's attention on this because I want you to know next week I'm going to begin a teaching series, several weeks, on the topic of sex. I have just enjoyed that reaction all day. Like for some of you, you just choked on your mint. And then there are about 10 of you that for the first time went, did he say? And you leaned in like I have your attention now. Here's where it's at. I know sex is not the thing that you think we would be talking about in church. And that's the problem. And I want to tackle it. And I was praying about it, and I just felt like God dropped this need in my heart. And I was almost like, you sure? You know, but here's the thing. Every one of you were created as a sexual being, and the Bible is full of sex. Talks about it from every which angle to help us live with God's view on it. And so there's more pain caused by it. There's more people struggle with their past because of it. People bondage in the present. And also there's a blessing for the future when you have God's understanding of it. So I'm going to take the next few weeks to unpack that. So here's what that means for you. Number one, you need to be here. You need to be here because it affects every single person here, every one of you. You need to invite someone to come. And this is the easiest invite ever. You can say, hey, come watch this guy crash and burn as he talks about sex in church. Like, it's the easiest invite ever. And then listen, I'm also letting you know, because if you have children, we have incredible childcare every service that you can try Twin Rivers Kids. Your students can go to Twin Rivers Students. It's an awesome opportunity for you to try that out. Some of you are so uncomfortable, you're going to volunteer in there next week, okay? I get it. But listen, and here's the last one. You need to be careful who you sit beside because it's going to be spicy. So, I don't want you getting all embarrassed if you're sitting beside your grandma. Set her on the other side of the church on Sunday, okay? That's all I'm saying. Is going to be good, going to be helpful, but don't sit by your grandmother, okay? Now, so today we're going to finish up this series that we've been in called, it's called Keeping Faith in a World Gone Crazy. Just this idea that if we've watched the news over the last few weeks, over the last few months, over the last few years, it just feels like things have gone crazy. And Scripture speaks directly to it from the book of 2 Timothy. And so we've been learning lesson by lesson of how to be a follower of Christ in a world turned upside down. And my prayer is this series, which you can go back and listen to, has been an encouragement to you. It's brought you back to center. But most of all, here's what I pray. I pray that now you can love well and stand strong. And that was Paul's goal when he wrote this letter. It's not really a book. It's his final letter to a young pastor named Timothy who was struggling in his own culture as it walked away from God. And Paul writes him lesson after lesson to help him stand strong in following Christ, but to also love well. Now, Paul's coming to the end of his life. As a matter of fact, he's covered almost 20,000 miles as a missionary. He spent 30 years planting churches, and he's written 13 New Testament books, which we still hold today. And he's coming to the end, and he's giving us kind of his swan song. And it's interesting, the last chapter, he spends the most time talking about one specific area, his relationships. And he's trying to convey to Timothy an important lesson. This is Paul's most personal letter written. And he's trying to convey this, that Timothy, there are going to be seasons that are so trying in your relationships, you'll want to give up on the whole concept. That your resolve is going to be tested in crazy times in your relationships, but don't give up. And he's writing this at the darkest season he's ever had relationally. As a matter of fact, you can kind of just pull out 4 things that Paul is struggling with just in this moment. The first one's this: he's endured great relational loss because there's just some people who are now at distance from him. His incarcerations have kept him from gathering with those he loves, and those relationships have faded. He's also lost some friendships to some ideologies. He talks about that false teaching starts to erupt in the church, and there's some people who he can't believe it, but they've come to the place where they would rather hold a viewpoint and give up a friendship. And it's caused him great pain. He's also got some just plain out divisions. Just because you got the phrase apostle on the front of your name doesn't mean you can't offend people or have disagreements. And he's just lost relationships to just true differences. And then Paul's also lost some folks to death. Rome at this time has went under a great famine, and the church is under great persecution. People Paul loved have died, and he's been gripped by the grief of it. Now, here's the thing. Paul's enduring not just one of these, but all of these at the exact same time, and it's almost unbearable. I would say it this way, you know how unbearable it is because so have you. In the last 2 years, there's not a person watching or sitting that hasn't lost somebody to one of these. And here's the thing, most of us have lost someone to each of these. I'll be the first to stand up and kind of hold my hand up. As a pastor, my world's people. And now you may assume coming in today or watching online that, a church this size and campuses that Kayla and I it's just a crowd. No. Make no mistake about it. It's people. Like people we love, people we live and die with, and every single loss we felt. I could take you through people who have relocated and that are relationships that I always thought would be there that have already faded. I could give you a list of people who have been swept away in a political or social ideology that after years of us walking together, they've looked at me and said, I just don't believe all that anymore. I now hold to this. I could take you to people who have been offended by something I've said, something I've done, something I haven't done, some stance we've taken, some stance we didn't take, and who have walked away. And I've buried way too many people. And like you, I've been tempted to just want to go, you know what? I'm just going to withdraw from all this relationship stuff. I'm just going to disconnect. I'm just not going to put myself out there as much because it hurts. But I keep coming back to the truth that Paul's trying to convey is this: life just doesn't work alone. It's only better together. That as much as we would like to be self-sufficient and independent, the truth is you'll never find satisfaction in any of that. It only works when we're together. And that's because God, in His wisdom, designed us that our lives are to be lived as a group project, not an independent study. How many of you remember in school how they had group projects and independent studies? How many of you like individual assignments? Like you love the individual stuff, right? I see some of you, this is the smart people in the room, right? You like the individual. How many of you loved group projects? Who love that? That's the people who always, that's the people the smart people hate because you're the one in my team. I do all the work and you're just here, right? And listen, God in His wisdom, here's what He decided. He said, your life is a group study. You can't graduate to who I want you to become without other people. You can't pass some of the hardest tests without other people. You can't enjoy this experience without other people. It's a group study, and we have to commit, no matter the pain, to we're going to be in these relationships. But more than any other time in this series, I feel like that God just sent me here today because you're at a pivotal moment. You're at a moment where you've lost a lot, and you've lost a lot of people, and you're kind of just considering, you know what, I just don't think I'm going to do this anymore. And it's so pivotal because I just feel like the Lord wants me to come and kind of prod you along to this reality. Hey, don't give up. And the best way I could give you an example would be this. Yesterday, we commemorated as a nation the events of September 11th. Obviously, 20 years ago, we all remember. You remember where you were. You remember the visuals. In April, I was at Ground Zero at the 9/11 Memorial. And if you've never been there, it's breathtaking to stand in the middle of New York and see these craters where these buildings used to stand. I mean, huge, bigger than you could ever imagine. And to stand there and think of how far, how wide, how deep the rubble of that destruction went, it's just breathtaking. I mean, it feels like a holy place because of the loss of life. But if you only look at what happened, you would miss part of what makes the memorial so moving. If you look across the memorial, you also are going to see Freedom Tower. Now, Freedom Tower was the building built in response to 9/11's attacks. It was built faster, with no expense spared than nearly any other building like it in the world, and it is the tallest building in America. And the reason they put so much into it is because they knew that this isn't just a building. This is a statement. This is a statement that crisis does come, and when it does, we mourn. But we don't stand looking at the rubble, we rebuild to show life goes on. Listen, and I feel like that's what God sent me here to say to you today, that hey, in the last couple of months, you've lost some people. You've lost some friends, you've lost family, and there's this temptation to pull back. There's this temptation to I'm gonna get with my 4 and no more. And what I sense God saying to you is no, it's time to rebuild. It's time to build a larger community than you've ever had, one that can enlarge you and your faith, that God still has friends, that he still has relationships, that he still wants you to experience the joy and the peace that come from people that he puts into your life. Don't shrink back. It's time to rebuild what you've lost. It's no longer time to just look at the rubble. It's time for you to roll up your sleeves and go, I'm going to give this relationship thing a chance again in my life. And I just believe that if you'll do that a year from now, you're not going to be looking at rubble. Instead, you're going to be looking at God's plan for your life unfolding through people in your life. Now, so here's what I'm going to do. This is Paul's most personal letter. So I want to get really personal today. I wish if I had time, I'd do it with every one of you. I want you to think of the next few moments like we're sitting across a coffee table from each other. And I want to talk to you not in principles or around you. I want you to listen. And as I talk, I want you to consider, Holy Spirit, is that me? Is that my step? Is that what I need to do? Because I'm telling you, I've just brought you action steps today that I think are not, all of them aren't going to be yours, but one of them, maybe 2 of them are going to be yours. And it's God's way of saying, this is how you begin to rebuild. Okay? Here's the first one. Some of you need to find refreshing relationships. You need to find some refreshing relationships. Paul had them, and he highlights them for us in chapter 1 when he says, may the Lord show mercy to the household of Onesiphorus, because he often refreshed me, and he was not ashamed of my chains. On the contrary, when he was in Rome, he searched hard for me until he found me. Come on, I need a friend who will search for me till he finds me. Don't you want some friends that are, listen, what he's referring to is the fact that under Nero, if you went to visit another Christian in jail, you were yourself arrested. So Paul lost almost everyone because they wouldn't put their life at risk, but not this guy. He said, I'm going to show up and be a friend even when it costs me something. And Paul said the fact that he would show up, it refreshed me. You know what that means in the Greek? It means he put breath into me. Man, I need some people, you need some people who put breath into you. Like who refresh you with wisdom when you're confused, like who refresh you with encouragement when you're fearful, who refresh you with humor when the day's gotten heavy. I need some people like that in my life, and you need some people. We want people like that, so why don't you got them? Why are they missing? Well, there may be different reasons, but I think the number one is this. We avoid asking. We avoid inviting. We avoid saying, I need help. See, there's this false number in life that like people just fall into your life, things fall into place, things just come about. But I can't add value to you until you give me permission. And when I say I need you, that's permission. And some of us just have obstacles to asking for help. Some of us are here today and to ask for help makes us feel weak, so we're not going to do it. I'd rather be strong and alone than I would be weak and with people. Some of you are here, and for you, it's just this trust issues. You've been so hurt in the past that every other potential relationship right now, you see it through suspicion. Can't be that good. They can't really mean that. They're always going to do this. For some of you, it's shame. Like you have such a low opinion of yourself that you could never imagine another person wanting to receive you or accept you. For some of you, it's just you don't want to be a burden because you see yourself as a chore. You think, well, they're so busy, they got so much going on. I mean, for me to bring my problems to them, that would just... Listen, it doesn't matter what your excuse is. Here's what happens. When you and I don't ask, we inadvertently start wearing a mask. We come to every gathering with people, every interaction, acting as though we don't need what we really need. It reminds me of a story. There was a guy who desperately needed a job, and so he applied for a position at a local zoo, and he sat down with the head of hiring, and the head of hiring said, hey, we've only got one position, and it's unusual. He said, a few months ago, our gorilla died, and we don't have enough money to get a new one, so we've got this gorilla suit, and we need you to dress up and act like the gorilla until we get enough money to buy a new gorilla. The guy said, are you serious? He said, that's the only job I got. He goes, well, it's a job. So the guy puts on this gorilla suit and gets in the cage, and it's awkward the first few days. I mean, he's struggling. I mean, but at night he's watching National Geographic. He's studying up, and then he hits his stride. I mean, he gets into the role, and he becomes one of the largest attractions to the zoo. Like, people come and stand around, they look, they cheer. I mean, he's killing it as this gorilla. Well, one day he's swinging from vine to vine, and he gives it a little too much gusto, and he swings into the neighboring cage, which holds a large African lion. And he is face to face with this lion, and he can feel its hot breath, and he knows he's a goner. So he just instinctively starts screaming, help, help, get me out of here, help. And all of a sudden the lion whispers, shut up, you idiot, or we'll both be out of a job. Here's the lesson of that story. Is this: we're all hurting, we're all hiding, so we might as well take off the masks. Listen, we all might as well admit we need each other. And that means for some of you, you need to just open up to people. For example, there's a family in our church who told me the story recently that they had went through great financial difficulty. The one lost their job, one's sales plummeted, and bills starting to pile up. Their faith's going down. And they carried it and did the best they could for a few weeks, but then finally they came to an elder one Sunday and we're just honest. This is just where I am. This is what's going on. Will you pray for us? The situation so touched the elder's heart that he reported it up, and when we found out about it, we sent a check to help them with the next month's bills just to take a little pressure off. But then someone else found out about it and sent them a card and encouraged them to keep standing in faith and that God's going to come through. And then someone else heard about that, and they knew someone in our church who was hiring, and so they reached out to that person, and they connected the two, and one of them, the one that lost, ended up working for that person and loves their job now. Now, here's all I'm saying. Under one roof, God met every single need through people. This is something you need to always remember about God. His delivery system of choice is people. That's the way he sends most of his goodness into your life. So have you, with your honesty, closed that system down or opened it wide for what you need? Listen, some of you need to get back out there and be open to friendships again. Some of you need to, I know you got friends for Friday, but you need to get some friends that spur you spiritually. Yeah. Listen, some of you come in like you got it all together. You need to take off the mask and get around some people who you can just say, I don't have it all together. Yeah. Listen, that's why we work tirelessly on a thing called life groups. If you're new to our church, you may assume that this church is only open one day a week, but you'd be wrong. We are 7 days a week. This is not the best part of this church. The best part of this church is what we call life groups, which is a smaller group of people who get together around all kinds of different interests and life stages. But here's the best part. It's people who, when you walk in, they're all pursuing Jesus, and they've all already taken off their masks. Like the minute you show up, they're going, hey, we need him and we need each other, and that's why we're here. When you choose a life group, you're not just choosing something to do, you're choosing the group of people God's going to work through in your life. And that's why it's so important. You can choose that today. They just started. You haven't even missed anything yet. You can go online and choose one, or you can go to Connect Central. We'll help you find one. Every time slot, day of the week, interest, age, you can be a part of one. Here's how strongly I feel about it. If you're alone in this church, it's only because you want to be. It's not because we don't have an opportunity for you to have some refreshing friends. Here's the second one. Some of you need to release some relationships. You know, to know people is to know pain, right? And we know that, but here's the problem. We handle pain so poorly. Kayla and I were in London a few years ago, and we were going through a museum, and we learned about the English Civil War of 1649. And I didn't know much about it. Maybe you do. But what happened is that King Charles was ruling, and an insurgency led by a guy named Cromwell rose up. They took him out of power, and 59 members of parliament wrote a declaration that King Charles should be publicly and humiliated and executed. So they did that. They carried out this execution. Well, the problem was that Cromwell and his 59 friends only ruled for about 11 years. And then they got overtaken by Charles's son, King Charles II. And when King Charles II came into power, he so resented what they had done to his father that he got that list of 59 out. And he had all 59 arrested, except for there were 15 that had already died. So you know what he had them do? He had them dig them up out of the grave, bring them into Parliament, and he put them on trial for treason. They said that he would walk past the corpse like a lawyer and say, "And what do you have to say for defending yourself?" See? Obviously an admission of guilt. And then he sentenced them to death and had them all hung or re-killed. Now, doesn't that sound crazy? I mean, that's nuts. Until you consider that many of you, multiple times a week, dig up something that happened in the past, and you put your offender on trial, and then you convict them to the sentence they should have had, but the only thing you're missing is it doesn't hurt them, it just kills you. Listen, when it comes to pain, it's inevitable. So you only got two choices. You either learn to resent people or you learn to release people. Resentment always perpetuates pain. Releasing them always replaces pain with peace. Which is why Paul wrote, "Alexander the coppersmith did me great harm. But that is no concern of mine, for the Lord will repay him according to his actions." Don't miss this. This is the secret. If you've ever struggled to forgive anyone, this is the secret. See, Paul just gave you the secret. The secret to forgiving people is to have full confidence in God. So what do you mean? I love God. It's the people I can't stand. No. You're missing. Forgiveness is a faith issue, not an offender issue. See, you have to have faith that God is just, that he sees all, that he notes all, and that he will bring to justice all. And if you have enough faith that he does that, you don't worry about what they did. You can release them. It does you no good. The Lord will repay them. And so listen, I'm not asking you to trust them again. I'm not asking you to get a relationship with them again. I'm not even asking you to forget it. I'm just asking you to entrust God with it. And you say, "I don't even know how to do that." It's simple. It's called prayer. This is, I even wrote it out for you. This is a prayer that will help you release someone every time that anger starts to burn. Every time you start sending your mind to go dig up what they did, you need to pray this prayer. Here it is. It's Heavenly Father, you know all, you see all, and justly rule over all. Therefore, I release, and you fill in their name. Now, I know for some of you, that's just like a short box. Some of you, it's like columns, A, B, C, Excel sheet, page. I get it, just there's enough room for you. And I release them to you to receive peace from you. Amen. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to have to pray that 10,000 times. But every time you pray it, it moves your heart more towards God and less away from, and further away from pain. And eventually you'll get to the place where you're not digging it up anymore. You're not thinking about it anymore. And you've truly released them to God. And there's a result, by the way. God didn't just tell us to do it, he incentivized it. Here it is, Luke 6, 37, 38. These are the words of Jesus. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Some of you church people thought this was about money. It's about forgiveness. He's saying, hey, when you release what they did, I'll release what you need. I'll release peace if you need peace, joy if you need joy, friends if you need friends, partners if you need partners, and I'll release it in such an amount that it will drastically overcome what you've lost. That's what it's saying. So you know what this means? This means for you, you're one act of surrender away from receiving exactly what you need from God. Because his promise is, you release them, and I'll release what you need. Here's the last one, the third one. You need to reconcile some relationships. How come, it seems like preachers, all they do is ever talk about what happened to us. But you know what I know about this crew? Y'all done some stuff to people too. So sometimes we need to take responsibility for what we've done to other people. We need to reconcile some things. In Acts 15, which is earlier than 2 Timothy, Paul's on a missionary journey, and he's got his team with him, Barnabas and a guy named Mark. Well, they get into some serious trouble, and Mark can't stand it anymore. He gets gripped by fear, and he deserts Paul and Barnabas. Well, Paul is like, you're not going to be my live and die kind of friend if you do that. And he makes it very well known how little he thinks of Mark. Mark's a deserter. He doesn't deserve to carry the gospel. He's not going to be used by God. I mean, he really just lets him have it. And it creates a lot of pain for Mark and puts a tension for years between Mark's friends and Paul's friends. There's a division over it. Coming to the end of his life, though, Paul looks at his life and he says, you know what? One of the things that I need to rebuild is I need to take responsibility for what I said to Mark. And he writes this in chapter 4. He says, only Luke is with me, but make sure to get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to me in my ministry. I thought you said he was a deserter. No. I'm taking that back. He's helpful. Paul sent a letter to apologize. Some of you need to send a text message to apologize. Some of you send an email. Some of you send a phone call that says, hey, let's get together for coffee. I need to take responsibility. And I get, like, immediately your mind's filled with, I can't, because it's not natural. Apologies are just not natural. They're just not. As a matter of fact, I know this because I'm raising a bunch of kids. And I can get them to eat broccoli before I can get them to apologize. Like, I'm serious. If I say, apologize for what you did to your sister, I mean, it's like obstinance. Like, well, listen, I'm going to take your toys if you don't. I'd rather go without toys than say I'm sorry. And then it's like, no, apologize. And then the first attempt is grunting. That's not what? Nobody understands that. What do you mean? And then you keep pushing till finally the best you're going to get is, I'm sorry. Not going to look you in the eye. I'm sorry. And it's funny because kids are like that, but we're not that different. Listen, we've got, our pride tells us to minimize it, to look over it, to deny it, to blame them. Maybe nobody taught you, I'm not sure that I was ever taught how to apologize. I'm going to teach you today, okay? An apology is not, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's not an apology. Here's an apology. An apology first owns up to your own responsibilities and what you did. It second acknowledges how they feel. It then requires that you ask for their forgiveness. And then finally, you ensure them you're working that it doesn't happen again. So it's not, I'm just sorry. No. It's, hey, I'm sorry that I did this, and it's on me. I did that. I reacted that way. I did these things. And I understand how it makes you feel. I've seen the pain it caused you. Will you forgive me? And in your forgiveness, I just want you to know I'm going to do my best to do these things to make sure that doesn't happen again. Now, there's power in that, and here's why there's so much power in that. Because in your relationships, there's a container, every one of them, and the more that offense gets put into the container, the more it grows and grows and grows until it starts to overflow, and it causes a toxicity everywhere in your relationships. And every relationship has this container. And you can't get rid of this container, and you can't not be offended because that's just what it is to know people. So you know what you have to do? Empty the container to keep it from overflowing in toxicity. And an apology is how you empty a container. Apologies give people a fresh start. They're divine. Listen, I'm people that go around talking about spiritual power all the time. I'm so tired of hearing that spiritual power is how well you sing or preach. Spiritual power, show me how much harmony are in your relationships. Like I want to see, because conflict's inevitable, but reconciliation, that's divine. Because it gives a fresh start. Listen, it was so powerful that we don't have any record of Mark doing any ministry before this moment. After he was hurt, no record of him ever doing anything for Christ. After this moment, he goes full into his purpose, and you know what he does? He writes the Gospel of Mark. He goes from a deserter to a gospel writer because an apology gave him a fresh start. This is the step for some of you. Here's the last one. Recognize the most important relationship. Listen, relationships with people are very important. Relationship with God must be priority. Because he's the only one that will never leave you or forsake you. Listen, I know you're in love, and they said they'll always be there. They mean it. They just don't have the capacity to fulfill it. I know that we've been friends since grade school. I love it. Continue on, but one day there'll be a moment that you can't stand with each other. But Christ has a way of always standing with us. That's what Paul wrote. This is my favorite verse of the whole series, the whole book. At my first hearing, no one stood up in my defense. Everyone abandoned me. I pray that it won't be held against them. However, the Lord stood by me, and he gave me strength so that I could finish spreading the good news for the nations to hear. Listen to me. Some of you have been through the absolute toughest season of your life. You've had to wrestle with thoughts you never, ever thought would enter your head. You've had to navigate the losses of people you never thought your life would be without. And there is this compounding isolation that makes that even more difficult. And in no way am I trying to minimize what you've been through, but I need you to know you have never been alone because the Lord has stood by you. You say, but Pastor, I'm going to be honest with you. In this season, I've made some really bad decisions. Not only have I made bad decisions, I haven't put much into my relationship with God. It doesn't matter. God's presence in your life is not based on your performance. It's based on his unconditional love. And he's decided that he will stand by you in every moment. He's standing there when you got up this morning. He'll be standing there when you go to bed tonight. He's standing there on your best days, and he's standing on your worst days. He's standing there when you're surrounded by people, and he's standing there when it's just been you and all you felt was completely alone. He's been standing there when you've been doing really well, and he's been standing there when you've broken down. He's been standing there when you spiritually 10 Sundays in a row, and he's been standing there when you only come for a hot dog. Listen, he's been standing there in your life at every moment because of an unchanging, unwavering, unconditional love that is his motive. Listen to me. It's the reason that 2,000 years ago he stood in your place and took the sins that you deserved. It's the reason today, no matter how much you pursue him or how little you pursue him, he stands by you even now. And it's why in eternity, as you enter into eternity, he'll be the first one you see standing to welcome you into eternal life. You can't shake his love for you. So you've never been alone. But let me point out that Paul doesn't just say that the Lord stood with me. He said that he's given me strength. Now, those are two different things, though. That's the dividing line between people in this room, listening online. Listen, he stands with everyone, but he only gives strength to those who are in a personal relationship with him. That you're not receiving that divine strength if your relationships went dormant. So listen. Here's what I've learned about life. You can tell where your relationship is with God based on how tired you feel. Some of you are very tired. And you think, I need a nap, I need a day off, I just need a vacation. But let's be honest, you've tried all that already. You're tired in your soul, and it's because you're depending on your own strength. What you need is a personal relationship with the God who's standing by you. And in that personal relationship, as you put that priority, his strength's going to start flowing in your life in a way like you never could. And oh, by the way, why is that important? Because no relationships work until your relationship with God is right. He's the one that gives us strength to do the other things. Will you bow your heads and close your eyes just as a closing out, a moment of reflection for you personally? I don't want you wondering about what other people are thinking. I don't want you wondering about what other people are considering. What's God saying to you? Just more than any other message in this series, I've wanted to set across from you, and I've wanted to talk to you about the relational struggles that you've been having and how God wants to work in them. I want to talk to you about the losses you've been feeling. If you're here today and you would say, Pastor Joe, I'm going to just own up to it, no mask. My relationship with God's not where it needs to be. It's not priority. And let me be clear, I'm not talking about religion. I'm not talking about like perfect attendance in church or giving or a label you wear. I'm talking about a relationship. You know him, he knows you. Your heart desires him. You sense him speaking, guiding your life. If that's not present, then your relationship with him is dormant. But it only takes a decision to reopen it. It's the most important decision of your life is your personal relationship with Christ, because for this world, it gives you strength, and for the world to come, it gives you salvation. And so here's what I want to do today. I want to pray for you. If you're here today and you say, Pastor Joe, I'm just going up to it. I need to restart. I need to recommit. I need to commit for the first time my relationship with Christ. I'm moving it to number one. It's going to be priority. I'm giving it another go. I'm going all in. Will you pray for me? I want to pray for you.
Hey, what's up, guys? We hope that this message you just heard blessed you. To always get our newest messages and to stay up to date, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that bell icon to be notified every time we upload. Now, while you're here, go ahead and check out our page and some other messages we've got, and we'll see you next time.